He's not a bat, he's a man who fights crime. And we're gonna watch him fight for a minute at a time. With John and Niall and a guest who doesn't rhyme. It's Bat Minute!
Attention, citizens of Fair Gotham, welcome once more to Bat Minute of the Phantasm, the show that is always full of losers and we don't care. I am one of your hosts, John Parker.
And I was also going to do a line about losers. but I'm also here. Niall McGowan, the co-host.
Suck on that, Niall. You've done that to me multiple times.
I thought we'd get no comeuppance, John. No comeuppance.
It's come back to bite you. And we are joined once again by Clarisse. She's here. Woo!
Hello.
Hey. The ultimate guest in some ways, because, you know, we don't want to just gush over the movie. We've got to pick it apart.
Yeah.
We've got to point out flaws in it. Not in a nasty
You've invited
way.
Batman's worst enemy.
Yeah. It's not the Joker, it's you.
It's me.
And we are here to talk about minute 17. The minute starts with a waist, and it ends with Bronski beat about to get wasted. All will become apparent.
Oh, it would be amazing if someone. This is what YouTube's made for. Is for someone to put like Smalltown Boy over the top of all Buzz Bronski's scenes. Like, what else is it there for?
Exactly. But yeah, we are back as we see the mysterious figures exiting the car. And the waist I'm talking about is the first thing we see is a cigar falling to the floor, which they extinguish with their foot. And I was just like, don't do that. That's not cheap.
Yeah, it looks like it's like most of the cigar as well. Usually people who smoke cigars will put it out because you can relight them. So it's like, well, yeah, I'm saving the rest of this. But I think even Arnold Schwarzenegger would be like, well, but you're crazy or something.
Yeah, you know, it's disrespectful to the creators. And I'm not a smoker. I don't even smoke. But still... You know, don't do this. You're wasting it. You're wasting money. You're wasting the product, I guess. And I thought maybe it's showing us a lot about this character, this person. It's kind of showing that they're evil, right? Like, they can afford to waste this. They don't care. They're just like, whatever. It means nothing to me.
And also, they put it out in a cemetery because they are inside the cemetery. So I feel like, also... They are really, really messing with the dead here. And they're going to get what's coming to them.
Maybe, is it just me who thinks this? I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Should you smoke in a cemetery? I think that feels a little disrespectful as well.
Well, I guess it depends on, like, if you're by a grave of someone who liked to smoke, maybe you would... Just like, you know, in Gross Point Blank, there's a bit where he goes to visit his dad's grave and he just buys a bottle of Jack Daniels and just like pours it over the grave. And he's like,
that's kind of fun.
Yeah, but that's like, here's for you. It's implied that his father was like an abusive alcoholic, but he's like, here's for you, Dad. And then just chucks the bottle at the grave.
This is what you liked.
Yeah. So good if you were going there. Here's a carton of cigarettes and fling it at the thing.
Yeah, and I know in like some cultural traditions, like you would bring, if they smoke during their life, you would bring them cigarettes, and I think maybe smoke around the grave as like a communal thing. That's obviously exempt, but I would say just smoking in general. But also, I don't like walking across graves. And I'm always with people at cemeteries who are like just walking over bodies, and I just feel like, what are you doing? It's weird.
That's the thing, though, Clarisse, because like we when you were on for our Wednesday coverage, we did refer to you as the real life Wednesday Addams. So like, I would have assumed that you would be like, oh, you're a proper goth girl just hanging in the cemeteries all the time. But is that true? Are you bucking the trend or?
No, I love cemeteries, but I feel like people don't follow the rules. I just don't. I feel like you, like, and I'm not a religious person. I don't really believe in anything particularly in an afterlife, but I still feel like there is a body in that grave, and I would like to be respectful to the little skeleton. Right?
Exactly. I was always
respect to skeletons.
I was always brought up. My mum would say to me, "You can't walk on the graves, like over the mounds and stuff. Like you can't do that. You're not allowed. So to this day, I don't do it. But me and my ex always used to go for walks around graveyards and stuff. And she'd just be walking over them left and right. And I'm like going, what are you doing? Yeah. You can't do that.
I feel like every time I go with someone to a cemetery, they do that. And I never say anything because I feel like an idiot to be like, you're upsetting the skeletons.
It's about respect. You use that word. That's what it is. It's like that was a person.
Although I think I had the same impulse, even though like rationally it's like, well, it doesn't matter. But like I think it's just growing up in an Irish Catholic town. Like every time I pass the chapel, I still feel like muscle memory of having to bless myself and all this business. Of like it just happens. It's like a spasm in my hand that just goes up and down. And so going near a grave, I'm like, well, you can't make sure you to keep a respectful distance from it and stuff. But
take off your hat, Niall.
Well, that's where I draw the line. Quite bad. And Buzz Bronski too. Apparently, he's like, I'm not taking off no hat. You're crazy.
No, he doesn't seem to give a damn. Does he?
This is an interesting question, though. I was like, I wasn't too sure. Like throughout this minute, we get the indication that Buzz and Chuckie Saul weren't really friends or like business associates or whatever.
No, they formed Bronski Beat and then they broke up because one of them went off to form the Communards.
It's like an odd thing to base, part of Batman lore on real life of English synth pop bands of the 80s. But no, I was just wondering. So it's like, okay, so he's going there with a kind of disdain. It's like, I better go see the grave. But also, I just thought it was weird that he's like, why is he going at night? And why is he bothered to bring this wreath and stuff? I'm wondering if there's more to this relationship than we initially thought. Like it's
gangster's code.
I kind of like, it's the gangster's code because you get that in a lot of gangster movies. I find like they go and visit their rivals. It's almost like I respect you a bit like we were talking about respecting the dead. Like we might have been at odds, but you're one of us. Kind of thing, like, and I kind of appreciated that he was doing it at night because he's trying to at least keep some of his stuff, under wraps and hidden. In other movies, they just do it in broad daylight at the funeral, and the cops are there.
It's like a regular thing in The Sopranos. It's just like them going to mob funerals and the FBI all taking pictures of them. And it's like there they all are. They're all there together. But I just this was wondering, it's like, so because we know that they weren't so much rivals as they worked properly together. There's a photo of them infamously so later in the movie. We're like, wait a, oh my god, no, like the John smile on it and stuff. So I was just wondering if it was a thing of like, since then something really went bust in the business, and I was like, I need to keep my distance from Chuckie Saul because we saw that Chuckie Saul is still running a casino. I'm wondering if it like might be the Buzz Bronski's like went legit. And he's like, yeah, it's all in the past and stuff. I can't let people know that I used to be running around with the Valestra mob and stuff like that. So that's why he's going at night, because he's like, I don't want anyone to see me, to even know that I was there. Because if I show up at this guy's funeral, everyone's going to be like, that's, what, how did you know him? Like, that's kind of thing. So, here's actually a question for you, though, Clarisse. Like, because you saw this movie, like, now 5 hours ago. Were you shocked at the reveal of who the Phantasm was? Were you suckered into thinking that it was Carl Beaumont, or what was your response to all that?
I was a little surprised because I think I did assume the movie would be too misogynistic to allow a woman to do all that stuff.
Yeah.
Because the Phantasm is very cool. I like the Phantasm a lot. So I did assume it was the dad purely through just,
that's what she wants you to
just through
think.
logic. But I don't think in that way, though, because I was like, well, it can't be her because the movie would never let it be her, which I think was probably not the intention of the film. But,
no, it is a bold move, isn't it? Especially for the time. Like, obviously, it doesn't get everything right, but they're just even having it there and not making a big deal out.
That's a part of the movie I really liked, is that she was the Phantasm.
That was a weird one I heard the other day. So maybe it wasn't weird at all, but like, but obviously listening to old reviews of this and people talking about doing interviews about it and stuff, and At one point, some guy was saying like, "Oh yeah," and Arthur Reeves, the obvious red herring character, and I was like, "Red herring?
What?"
And then they were like, "Oh yeah," so they try to make you think that he's the Phantasm. I was like, I don't think when I saw this movie, I was about like 8. And I don't think I ever thought that he was the Phantasm at any point.
I certainly didn't know. What the hell?
Yeah,
No.
I think maybe it would make sense because he's so anti-Batman that he'd be like, "Oh yeah, so I'm trying to drum up, anti-Batman rhetoric by dressing as the Phantasm." So it's like, I never got that he was supposed to be, that they would ever try to make you think that he was the Phantasm. I just thought he's just some asshole who's part of the plot. But
He's too much of a slimy little prick. The Phantasm isn't that,
well, maybe that's because he's so slimy and like he seems like he'd be involved in uncouth wheeling and dealings that maybe he would be the kind of guy. But like, no, the Phantasm does seem too cool to be him. Like it's too dignified a character, quite frankly, to have anything to do with Arthur Reeves. So.
Exactly, he's not like that at all.
Yeah,
no, I'm not into that. No.
No. But people write in though. If you on first viewing thought at any point like, oh, that guy's going to be the Phantasm. Like I thought when I first watched it, he was going to turn out to be the Joker. And I was at that level. I'd still never thought he was going to be the Phantasm in it though. So. But yeah,
I did think that actually because there were a lot of characters who were drawn to look like the Joker.
Yeah, it is weird. I remember distinctly thinking that back in the time. It's like, oh, this guy's going to turn out to be the Joker. And then when the Joker showed up, and like, oh, I guess he's already here. So.
Yeah, he's a thing.
Yeah.
Oh, but Buzz here, I wrote down his voice actor is John P. Ryan.
Yeah.
And as I am wont to do, I always do this, don't I? I wrote down my favourite things he's been in. Or a nice selection. I picked a selection. He was also in Bound.
Oh, it's the last movie was Bound.
Yeah.
That's still my rewatched Bound recently. Of course, the Wachowskis classic was the movie they made to prove they could make a movie for Warner Brothers, so then they could do the Matrix kind of things. Because otherwise, they're like, we're not giving you money to make this giant thing you never even directed before. For Christ's sake.
Understandable. Now I'm simping for corporations. God damn it.
Yeah.
But now, understandable. Like, you don't just go, here's millions upon millions of dollars for this.
And not to get into too much of like a thirst trap business, but like, holy moly. Like, rewatching Bound recently, like, Gina Gershon in that movie is just like, oh my god, this is like so stunningly gorgeous. Jennifer Tilly, obviously gorgeous and all right. But just I always said Gina Gershon is the perfect live action Catwoman that never happened. And particularly if you're thinking of like the cropped hair, sort of Frank Miller-esque, ex-prostitute version of Selena, Gina Gershon in Bound is just like, there it is. That's the character. Right, like, why did this never happen? But still not too late, James Gunn. Still not too late.
Get it done. Well, he was also in Miami Vice,
Hey.
which ties into our other show. MASH, Starsky and Hutch, and most importantly, Delta Force 2, The Colombian Connection. And let's not forget Death Wish 4, The Crackdown.
Oh, yeah. I saw that myself. Both had seen it on his IMDb, and also I have seen Death Wish 4, The Crackdown. And it is hilarious because it's by Death Wish 3. It's gone from like, gritty urban drama to like
madness.
It's Charles Bronson coming out with a bazooka and taking on an entire town kind of thing. Death Wish 4, there's a scene where he delivers a bottle of wine to a bunch of gangsters, one of which is Danny Trejo.
Oh.
Danny Trejo with a bowl haircut. And he's sitting there, and they're all like, wait a minute, what the hell is this? And then I'll have to send you the clip, Clarisse. You have to see this. It's like, there's a bunch of actors sitting there going, "What?" And then it cuts, like, in camera, the edit, to the explosion shot. But it's so, there's a little split second of you just seeing the group of mannequins that they put at the table. So it's a mannequin of Danny Trejo with a bowl haircut, just sitting there waiting to get
when that
approval.
happens.
And it's like, this is Garth Marenghi Dark Place level kind of stuff.
Not
It's
even
like,
trying.
yeah, you're just like, how did anyone? The thing is now, don't ever change it. Make sure that stays in the movie for the rest of the time. But the Death Wish 4, the Crackdown is it's crack, as I'd say back home. That's definitely.
I don't think I've seen that one. I've seen the Bazooka one because we watched it together, I think.
Oh, Death Wish 3 is great. Like it's action Sherlock at its finest. Yeah. But I know I also went through John P. Ryan's It's weird too when you look him up. As soon as you see the picture, you're like, oh, I know that guy. Like he's one of those, like, he's a classic that guy.
Yeah.
He's been in a bunch of, you don't know what you know him from, but you know you've seen him and stuff. And
that's the best position to be in, I think, as an actor, because you're getting money, but you're not getting all the fame.
Yeah,
you don't want that. It's hassle.
But yeah, he's been actually in. Apparently, he was introduced to acting, or introduced to film acting, and has starred in 5 films featuring Jack Nicholson.
Oh,
he's a Jack Nicholson bud. I don't know if that's how he got this gig, because we know Jack. That's such a weird back end deal with Batman '89, where he got
maybe that was in his contract. When you do an animated movie for the big screen, I want my friends to be in it.
Well, that's why Tracy Walter was playing Bob. It was just like Jack was like, yeah, I want this. I want my friend to be in the movie, and so that's why Bob is there.
Can't say no.
Yeah, he's like, oh yeah, well, my buddy John P. Ryan didn't get to be in it, but if you guys are making another movie, like, it can be a voice in it. This one, and they go, yeah, that'll be great. That'll be great. So yeah, he's in 5 easy pieces, The King of Marvin Gardens, The Missouri Breaks, and The Postman Always Rings Twice, and Hoffa, which is of course, Danny D. So I've never actually watched Hoffa. We have to go back and I watched The Irishman, which is Al Pacino as Al Pacino playing Jimmy Hoffa.
Solidarity.
Yeah, if you bought it, a truck brought it. I was like, oh,
that was a good impression.
When he said that in the movie, I was like, there it is. I've been waiting for a good old fashioned Pacino performance for so long, and he's back at it. But yeah, so he's in a ton of like pretty reputable kind of things. He's in the good Cannon movie from Cannon Movies, notorious film production. Cannon films, mostly made terrible crap.
Like Death Wish.
Like Break Into Electric Boogaloo, and my all-time favorite, Masters of the Universe. Absolutely will defend that movie to the death, of course. But the one time they accidentally made like a really good movie, Runaway Train, with Eric Roberts from The Dark Knight, and Tiny Lister, also from The Dark Knight.
Everything's connected.
I think like Eric Roberts ended up getting like an Oscar nomination for it. It was like it just sounds like, it's a bunch of guys in Siberia stuck on a runaway train, and people watched it and they're like, oh, it's gonna be Drek. And then you watch it, it's like, holy, this is actually like a really good film. Like, how did Cannon do this?
That's probably why it's the only Cannon one I haven't seen that you've mentioned so far.
But yeah, he's in It's Alive, which is a baby. The couple will give birth to a monster baby that goes around killing people movie.
That's a Dark Place episode right there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly so. Yeah. Also features Michael Ansara, who people might recall is the voice of Mr. Freeze in the Batman animated series. And for our purposes, John, he's in Shooting Stars. Not that version, not the Vic Reeves Bob Mortimer show, but...
Oh, I thought he was on the show.
Oh, if only. Oh. No, it's a cop drama with Billy D. Williams, so Harvey Dent.
Everything's connected again.
One of our Harvey Dents. He's in something. His first movie was something called The Tiger Makes Out with Eli Wallach, of course, also played Mr. Freeze. And he's... we talked about what was once mistakenly called Tim Burton's TV directorial debut, the Wednesday Addams Show with yourself, Clarisse. But we at Batminute know that Tim Burton directed for television before.
Yeah,
because he
got a whole episode about it on the Patreon.
Yeah, he did an episode of Shelley Duvall's Fairy Tale Theater, which this guy was also... He wasn't in that episode. He was in the episode for Rip Van Winkle, which was directed by Francis Ford Coppola.
Whoa, what?
Yes. And just like him, we saw like the Tim Burton Aladdin episode. We're like, oh man, this is good. Freaking James Earl Jones and freaking one of the Carradines and stuff is here. That Rip Van Winkle thing instantly sold me. Where like, oh, so who's in it? It's like Harry Dean Stanton as Rip Van Winkle. I was like, holy, that is amazing casting. Ed Begley Jr., of course, from Batman Forever, is also in it, and
amazing again.
Yeah, Chris Pine, Talia Shire, all these, and Tim Conway, who I know from that Simpsons joke of like, what's a Tim Conway? About 140 pounds. But yeah, John P. Ryan, he's been around. He's also dead. That's why he's...
yeah, that upset me.
He was around. He's not no more. So.
Oh. But I think he does a good job here with the character. I like the character the fact that he's not even though he's dressing this way, he's not a stereotypical mob guy. Like, he's not Italian American and stuff.
Polish, I guess. Bronski, would that be? I don't want to make any wrong.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's part of what makes him interesting to me. Is like, I can't figure out where he's from, like his family and stuff, and I like that because every mob is always just Italian.
Does anyone want to wager a guess as to why he's called Buzz? Like, it's like, oh, he's really into Toy Story. That was his. He's like, I'm going to take this Valestra mob to infinity and beyond. It's like, oh,
he wanted to travel into space like Buzz Aldrin.
Yeah. Mentioned Frasier last.
I thought you had the answer.
No. I thought weirdly, there's a little thing in the novelization though, where they add in a thing where he obviously goes up to the grave and he's like, Chuckie, and but apparently in the novelization they note that his name is actually Charlton Saul, and he goes like, Charlton, are you kidding me? And kind of like shakes his head at that, which I like too because you do get that sometimes with someone you've known them by a nickname their whole life, and then you find out their actual name. You're like, what? That's your name?
That's always funny.
Yeah. Don't know if you come across that yourself, Clarisse. Is anyone you've been calling something for your entire life?
I don't really know because I don't really use people. I'm not a nickname person.
No, to be honest, I'm not. A lot of our friends, I don't think, have nicknames except for like one or two.
No. I don't think. Have you ever had a nickname yourself, Clarisse? Like, it's not really. Your name's not really one you can kind of like abbreviate even. Like this.
Oh, I've had so many. At school I was I'll say it with an English accent, classy.
Oh,
I don't know why, but it emerged and it stuck.
You're sitting around those cemeteries with like a cigarette holder and looking very like in your opera gloves and stuff, like monocle in your eye, like, oh, there she is.
That might be what did it.
Yeah, with my large tomes of Edgar Allan Poe around the playground.
I used to do that. I'd carry Poe around everywhere just in case it would strike up a conversation with someone. Never did.
Throwing
Poe
great
conversation starter. Great conversation starter.
But no, I also, because this Gary Gravel, the guy who wrote the novelization, does write like a lot of little nods in here and there into stuff because he referenced like Denny O'Neil in previous chapters and things like that. I'm wondering if he put in Charlton as like a little nod to, there was like the third comic company that ended up going under in the 80s because you obviously have Marvel, DC, and you have just a couple of other ones, but like one of the other big ones was also Charlton Comics.
Oh, I haven't heard of them. Okay.
Yeah, well they're gone now, but like they were the birthplace of Denny O'Neil, came from Charlton Comics. Steve Ditko. They made Steve Ditko invented the character of the Question, who showed up in Justice League, and Peacemaker. Peacemaker was originally a Charlton Comics character, and then DC just nabbed him.
Did DC just like buy the company out, basically?
I think they just came in. It was like a salvage job. Like they came in and was like, well, we'll take this off you.
One day, a wrestler turned actor will be perfect for this. We gotta have him.
And again, one of those other scenarios of like, I'm not interested in this show, and then you watch it and you're like, holy Christ, this was incredible! Like, I can't believe how good this was.
Well, I'm a wrestling fan.
Oh, it's the best show.
I'm a wrestling fan, and I wasn't interested in it. That says it all. That's how bad it looked. But can't argue.
No, we did skip past like a little hint of the thing that I love the most in Batman is the two goons left behind, going like, they say the Bat iced this guy. I know, like them been creeped out by the concept of Batman. Even more so next thing here, he freaking killed somebody.
Well, you can imagine what I was thinking of. It reminded me of our classic '89.
Yeah,
kind of beginning there where they're talking about the Bat.
Oh, it's still
Johnny Garbs.
Yeah, my old still like this day, even all the Batman minutes we've covered, just that scene of just like they go He's like, oh, Johnny Cobbs, got ripped and took a walk off a roof. No big loss. Like, nah, man, that ain't what I heard at all.
Yeah.
I heard the bat got him. A bat, come on. And it's like, in the background, I'm descending. It's like, oh my God, it's so good. But like, it's like, I did that 30 years ago. It is kind of almost a thing of like, you did Batman perfectly in that scene. You didn't need to make any more. Like,
Stop there.
you literally, I know you've done great stuff since that we've talked about ad nauseum, but like, you could have just had those first 15 minutes and I would have been happy. That'd been all the Batman I ever needed in my life.
But no, I instantly thought of that. And bizarrely, I also, the only other thing I could think of just with these guys chatting was, like Star Wars scenes where you just have like stormtroopers chatting about T-16s and
Yeah.
Oh, there's such a good one in Rogue One, and they die immediately afterwards.
I love that one.
And then there's one, because I think it's the thing in A New Hope, they talk about this, like, oh, I think it's quite a thing to see. And I think in Rogue One, there's one referencing that the same thing that they're talking about, as if like that's what the stormtroopers are all chatting about these days.
Yeah,
it's like some upgrade or something. And
I think
like,
in Rogue One, it's them. They're chatting about like the whatever the T-15 or whatever. It's like, oh, have you heard they're decommissioning it? And then in the in Star Wars, they're talking about the new model. Oh, it's great.
Of course. With this movie in particular, that is the last conversation we'll be having about Star Wars. We'll have no other reason to bring it up at any point down the line. So.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, there'll be no crossovers of any kind.
No. But yeah, that's the thing though, because at least one of our things we're asking guests this season, particularly because when the Phantasm shows up, it's such a creepy, and it seems within these minutes too, seems like such a genuinely supernatural threat. And because I'm just really into ghosts and stuff, I'm always like, have you ever encountered something? I met someone the other day and for ages, she was telling me like, oh, no, I've got a good ghost story. And I was like, oh man, she's like, I'll have to tell you in person. And then I met her in person and I forgot to ask. And now I'm like, God damn. So I have to like try to, much like you chasing down Jon Favreau to ask questions on our behalf, I'm going to have to do that myself as well. But have you had any ghostly encounters yourself? Did you see this and go, me too?
I mean, I haven't seen like that level of ghost, but I don't believe in ghosts, but I've had multiple incidents where I've maybe questioned it.
So you are basically, you're Dana Scully is what you're saying. It's like, I don't believe in aliens, but I have met them on several occasions.
Yeah, very much that level. The main one is when I was a child, and it was not long after I'd moved to the UK. My parents took me to Hampton Court, and there is this famous gallery, if you've been there, called the Haunted Gallery, which is supposedly where, I think it's Catherine Howard ran down screaming and begging into the chapel to ask Henry VIII not to execute her, because I think the order had just gone out. And so supposedly at night, like, you can see her ghost and hear her ghost running up and down the hallway. And while we were there, I heard a woman scream at the top of her lungs, and no one reacted. And I turned to my parents and said, oh, did you hear that? And they went, what are you talking about? And I think I brushed it off at the time, going, oh, well, obviously it must just be a recording that they play and it's part of the experience. But I've been to Hampton Court a lot since then, and that's not part of the Hampton Court. They don't play any screaming in that hallway. And it was not around Halloween time. It was not a special Halloween thing. So I've always been a bit like, what was that? And why didn't no one react to it? Because I very clearly heard a woman scream.
Oh, that's creepy, because that's not something like... It's not even a sound that you could have mistaken for a scream. Like a different noise. Like
no.
What else? Even cats screeching at each other at 3 a.m. That sounds like maybe babies crying. It doesn't sound like a woman screaming.
Yeah, and also, why would cats be? It was the middle of the day.
Yeah.
Bright sunshine. Yeah, the only explanation is that a woman did scream and just no one clocked it for whatever reason.
That's even more worrying, to be honest.
Yeah, but yeah. That's and the house I grew up in, when it was sold to us, we were told that it was haunted by the ghost of a Edwardian gentleman. and I never saw him, but there were quite a few like creepy occurrences in that house. Because I used to see stuff when I was like a little kid, but I'm pretty sure that was just sleep paralysis. Which I think does explain about 90% of ghost encounters. Because I saw a man on fire, like, yeah, I was a really, like, weird kid. Yeah, I saw a man on fire, like, walk. My door was open and the hallway light was on, and I saw him walk across and kind of like peep in and then keep going. But now thinking back, I'm pretty sure that was just sleep paralysis.
Even if it is, that's creepy as hell.
I think I'm going to think, because usually the scenario would be someone would tell you, I saw a ghost, and you would always be inclined to go to them. That was sleep paralysis or whatever. I think this might be one of the few times where, Clarisse, I had to tell you, I think you saw a ghost. Like, that doesn't sound like sleep paralysis to me. It seems like, you saw an actual entity going across the god. Like, I know the sleep paralysis thing is always like, the old hag sitting on your chest and stuff. I never usually hear people talking about like freaking people, guys on fire walking across hallways. Like, you saw a ghost, lady.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's a more unusual one, but I know sleep paralysis it can form different kinds of hallucinations. So I think it would still fall under, please, I don't want to have seen a ghost.
Much like the original time we brought it up was like, we ended up talking about the lyrics to Life, oh life. Because one of the lyrics is like, I never want to see a ghost. It's the sight I fear the most. Would rather have a piece of toast. And so we're thinking of calling this section, Would You Rather See a Ghost or Have a Piece of Toast? And I think you've answered the question already, Clarisse. So.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of, I am interested in it, and I've always been really interested in ghost hunting and ghost photographs and like all of that history. So I think I would want to see a ghost if I have not already.
You definitely have.
Yeah. I hate to break it to you, Clarisse, but you've definitely seen a ghost. At least two, apart from one of these stories. So.
Turns out you've got like 50 other tales of like, well, there was this other time.
I've got quite a few, and it was in. Yeah, I used to see stuff when I was a kid, and then I had in the house growing up. Someone pulled on the back of my sweatshirt for sure at one point. And yeah, there's like weird sounds, and there's a hallway I always had to run down if the lights are off, because it was a weird thing, when sometimes at a hallway the light switch is on one end and you kind of have to like walk all the way in the dark to get to the other end. No. Yeah, but this one had very bad vibes. Very bad vibes to it. And I would always have to turn the light off and then sprint all the way to the other side of the house. Because it would stretch like the entirety of the house. Yeah. Because I could not walk because it was too...
As soon as that light goes off, that's when the demons come out instantly. You've got to run, get to bed, and you're safe.
Yeah. Because it didn't feel great to walk down even with the lights on and the lights off. That, yeah.
So we're going to ask too, because I know, Clarisse, that you on previous seasons have mentioned that you are a big fan of the character of Gentleman Ghost as well. I was like, have you met a gentleman ghost by any chance? But
wow, I mean, because they said when they sold that house that the ghost was an Edwardian gentleman.
Oh, nice.
So if he was the one behind all the, so I never saw him. But if he was behind all the stuff that happened, then I guess I would have like had an encounter with a gentleman ghost.
Yeah. We came out and he had the cape and the friggin' top hat, and it was just like a floating monocle. It was like, oh my god, it's him! It's the real guy.
But this is the thing, I would love to have an encounter with a friendly, nice ghost. Or I would like to be a ghost when I die. But be a fun, like just a fun, cool ghost. Like one of the ones in the Haunted Mansion.
Yeah.
Who are just like having a little party. I guess because it's always meant to be like when every ghost, it happens because of a traumatic death. So if you die like nicely, you don't get to become a ghost.
You could have a traumatic death and still be kind of chipper about it.
Or you could be like Gentleman Ghost, who like... He people don't know the character of Gentleman Ghost. He was used to be a Hawkman villain, Kind of worked his way into the Batman Rogues Gallery, but he was like a gentleman highwayman called like Jim Craddock, who died and then somehow, accidentally, much like Palpatine returning, somehow he got flung into the future, and so had to spend the rest of his time as a gentleman ghost.
As you do.
Going on with like a flintock, robbing people and being very posh and English and stuff. And I actually now, because I finally bought myself a tablet to do art on, and I realized, you get the DC Universe app now, where you just get your access to all old DC comics. And then I read the other day the original story that had Gentleman Ghost meeting Batman, and it was great. It's like from
when did he originate, Gentleman Ghost?
He's an old Golden Age character from way back.
So like 60s?
I think prior to that, like he was been way back in the 40s. But yeah, always Hawkman, and then he got bumped up. He did one of those things where he just disappeared for like 20 years. Then they brought him back. And they would do like storylines where people know the whole thing. He is a proper English gentleman. Like he speaks in very upper crust kind of ways and stuff, and that's what kind of makes it ridiculous because he's a floating monocle with a top hat and a cape. And the Batman encounters him. There's always a debate about whether he's genuine or not, because Batman doesn't believe he's an actual ghost, even though the comics tell you he's legit a ghost.
Yeah.
The storyline is that Alfred's gone missing, and Bruce at this point is living in the penthouse in the middle of Gotham, like like in the Dark Knight, in the high-rise penthouse, and then eventually tracks down Alfred, who's been missing for like a day or two. It turns out he's like under a trance by Gentleman Ghost, who's taken over Wayne Manor and is decorating it with antiques, so it can be like, he wants to make it his house basically, because it's like his old country and his old house in merry old England, and he's just grown accustomed to like. And there's bits of Alfred serving him tea, and they're like, "Are you quite happy, Mr. Craddock?" And like, "Yes, Alfred, your service has been exemplary." And Batman busting in to be like, "All right, Ghost, give me my goddamn house back." And it ends up with like Batman and a ghost horse and carriage fight, and and all his goons are all English. So this is from like the 70s when it's into like the dark era of Batman, but they're still like, "Cool, blimey, it's the bloody Batman, it is."
Oh, God.
Oh, it's amazing. But I maintain now, like I'm optimistic about James Gunn taking over DC.
Can I make a casting suggestion?
I've got one in mind, but I'm wondering if it's going to be the same guy. So
maybe, because I feel like that's such a Matt Berry vibe,
that's
right?
Exactly what I was thinking as well.
Perfect.
I can hear it myself in my head. I can hear him doing it.
Yeah. Also, it'd be perfect even in like whatever the next bit of Peacemaker is. Gentleman Ghost showing up and being Matt Berry would be perfect.
Yes. Please let him meet Vigilante.
Yeah. Or about like I would say too, like because there's silly Gentleman Ghost stories, but then there's also like serious ones where like he has like an orb that will reconstitute his body, but it sucks the life out of anyone who is near it. And so it's basically like Hellraiser, only with like an orb instead of him killing them and wearing their parts, or whatever. And so you could do that. I wouldn't be averse to like Matt Berry like trying to go in a bit more serious direction and playing Gentleman Ghost, but he's actually like a bit threatening and stuff. They actually make him a proper foe, rather than like a really silly like, oh, he's a ghost with a top hat and stuff. It's like I think it can be done, But
I like it.
Yeah, I think I'm just like that though, because I'm so exhausted at the minute from seeing all the chatter around MODOK and Ant-Man 3, and people have been like, oh, the character's stupid anyway, you could never have made him threatening. And I'm just like, do people not remember really creepy things that were in movies when you were a kid? And it's like, that could have, of course you could make MODOK threatening. Like, use your imaginations, people. Like, what the hell's the matter with you?
You can't anymore. No one has one.
Yeah. So that's what, from all that discourse, I'm just like, all right, maybe I want a serious Gentleman Ghost. Maybe I think, Victorian highwayman with a top hat and a monocle haunting modern day Gotham with a flintock is a great serious idea, quite frankly. So go and do it.
I mean, the Riddler is quite silly, but they made him terrifying in the last Batman movie.
Yeah, he's so good in that.
Yeah. As the Batman going to visit Gentleman Ghost in that version of Arkham. The floating monocle behind the glass and stuff.
Hey.
Just make him an incel. That's all you need to do. And then immediately he's really scary.
There's nothing more horrific and terrifying, really, is there? That was the best thing they did in that movie. The Riddler, weird internet incel.
Yeah. And fair dudes. The same.
Frightening.
Batman Forever, too. It's just like, well... He doesn't strike me as a man who's been laid all that often. The Jim Carrey version, so... But speaking of spectral encounters, of course, we do get very disrespectful Buzz Bronski chucks his wreath at Chucky Saul's grave. Well, it is weird, though, that they just call him Chucky Saul on the tomb as well. Like,
well, maybe that's the name he wanted. Maybe that's the name he used, and he didn't like his real name.
Yeah, maybe he just had no respectable people who knew him. Like, he didn't have a family or anything, so they're just like, yeah, it's Chucky Saul, whatever. just bury him. He's got money.
But it is disrespectful, though. You're right. Like, I think this is showing that he is just coming because this is what you're supposed to do. Like, well, this is what we do in the biz, so to speak. Because he just chucks that thing down. Like, there you go.
He chucks at that, he knocks over the flowers that are already there, and then he says, like, oh, you always were a loser. Like, and there's a real bit of spite in his voice. And so I really am interested in, like, were these guys... Like, I almost do like the idea that Buzz Bronski went legit. And he, like, maybe. Chucky Saul he was involved in that casino, so he's kind of like, oh, that was the guy from my previous life. And just going, like, you just never got your together, did you, Chucky? Like, you always was just, oh, no, this casino's doing me fine and stuff. Like, look at me, I'm a man of industry now. But you're always just, back still stuck in the seedy 80s where we left you and stuff. But
it could be that, yeah. That might be why he's being so disrespectful, because it's like, well, I used to be close to you.
Yeah, it's like maybe that's why he wants a little private. Much like Andrea Beaumont wants to go and talk to her parents in private. Maybe Buzz and Chucky had a real bond. He's like, I can't believe that you're... That's why he's up there. Like, they specifically said to the goons, like, make sure you leave me alone. So he's about to go into a whole, like, it's time, I missed you so much, man. I can't believe that you're gone.
No. Oh, but you mentioned ghostly. And we do hear a ghostly voice. A spirit. Oh my God, who could it be? It's Chucky, back for revenge, right? Damballa, give me the power, I beg of you. No, it's the Phantasm.
I'm genuinely stunned. I don't think Brad Dourif has done a voice for the DC animated universe, where you think he would be like one of the first people they'd go to. But yeah, it was weird.
I'm not saying recast this, right now or anything, but he would have been a good Joker. Maybe very obvious though. I don't know.
I think nowadays, it's a bit like, well, he's done Chucky to death, basically. Like, he's come back from the grave and now he's done him to death again.
I like here though that it terrifies Buzz that he can't tell where it's coming from. He's sort of looking around like, oh. But and then the Phantasm does emerge from this weird fog that's enveloping them. But he's looking everywhere, trying to figure out where the hell they are. It's cool. He's very scared.
Oh, yeah, it's theatricality and deception are powerful agents, John. But I do, I love this though. But I also love thinking about, like, how did Andrea Beaumont set this up then? Like, did she know that Buzz Bronski was going to come up? Maybe it's been a couple of weeks and Buzz Bronski goes to this grave every night or something. Like, that's how he always goes to the... Or maybe, like, it's also right by her parents' grave.
Yeah, they're all in this one area.
The Gotham Cemetery is only, like, 7 foot wide or something. But she's there. She was there talking to her mother, and she's like, "Oh Christ, it's that guy I gotta kill." Oh my God! Luckily, I brought my Phantasm get up with me. But no, there would have to be a whole thing of, like, unless she did a Bruce Wayne and she'd, like, learned the art of ventriloquism and stuff. Like, how was she? Did she set up speakers in the trees to be like, oh, so I'm going to put my voice there, I'm going to, do this, I'm going to...
It's very elaborate, and I like that it never tries to explain it. Don't bother. It's fun for us too, but don't actually put it in the movie.
It'd be great, though, later on in the movie, she's like to Bruce, like, learn to throw your voice, fool your friends, fun at parties.
Well, then we get the great line as well, your angel of death awaits.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really cool vocal choice, because it's calm, collected to the point. I always find that creepier. If it was just like, your angel of death awaits. That's like,
So the calmness suggests an inevitability to the whole thing. It's just like, well, this is it. And I look to behind the phantasm as well. There's a giant angel figure. So we'll be next week when we talk about it. But like, it's quite literal this time. The whole angel of death thing as well. So yeah. But no, I love this. But what did you? Because that's specifically asked you on for these minutes, Grace. Because I know you are a fan of the macabre. So like, what? You might not like Batman, did you appreciate this scene at least?
Love Phantasm. Just a very cool vibe. I like the kind of Skeletor outfit. The mask is very cool. It's kind of like a hockey mask, but a skull. It's great. And also, I don't know what the hand is. It's like an axe, but
like a axe,
like a nub,
pincers kind of thing going on. And yeah, it's weird hand. Yeah.
I don't really know what it is, but I like it, and I would like one.
Just in your day-to-day life, it's going around with it.
Yeah. And I really, going back to last episode and my whole frustration with Batman's hypocrisy, I really like that Phantasm is up front. Yeah, I'm the angel of death. I'm gonna murder you. Like, I could really appreciate that. Like, she's really clear about what her business on this planet is.
Yeah.
So I support her. I support her.
It's hard to argue with what she's doing in some ways. Like, I know, okay, maybe she's going a bit far, but you're like, okay.
Well, again, though, it's one of those things of like, well, these people got away with this for years, decades. And so no one else is stepping up to take care of these guys, so...
And exactly, Batman, who's presumably must know who the mob are. What's he been doing?
Yeah.
Oh, he's just been beating them up, and then they go to jail for a week, and they get out again.
I do like the idea, though, now of you going to interview like people in the future sitting with your Phantasm hand. They're like, what? Why have you got that? Like, oh, show my support for the Beaumont,
James Gunn, tell me when Peacemaker Season 2 is coming.
I'd just wear that all day, every day. It'd be great. People staring at it, I'd be like, pay no attention to the hand.
You can cut salami with it.
Oh, it'd be great, yeah.
Open doors.
Multi-purpose.
Yeah. You put your recorder in there, just like sit and point it at people the entire time.
Yes.
Yeah. But then eventually taking it off at the end of the day, it's like, oh my god, I got the stinkiest, sweatiest hand now. But it does actually raise the question of like, what is Andrea like? Is she holding on to something inside it, or is it just like fitted? Is it locked into her arm, or what?
No,
way
she's holding on. Remember, I compared it to that thing a few weeks ago, that weapon. I think it works the same. It's like inside the gauntlet, there'll be a metal bar.
Oh, okay.
That you'll hold on to.
Because I do remember my childhood Captain Hook costume, and having to hold on to the little hook and your hand getting really sweaty after a while. So I think maybe into like I'd only realize it now, but probably my entire life I've been thinking Andre Beaumont's got sweaty hand in there holding on to this thing the whole time. But whereas actually more than likely she's like, no, I fitted a thing so I wouldn't have to do that because that would be stupid otherwise.
It's baby powdered up. Don't worry, she's good.
But yeah. So we got some fantastic creepy escapades going on here. But they continue into the next minute, so I don't know if I'm noted out for minute 17. Unless you guys have anything else you want to bring up.
No, all done with this one. So yes, we will head off then into the dark, dark night once more. Join us again on Friday. We'll be back with more Bat Minute of the Phantasm. It's going to be minute 18, people. Aha! See you then, Batmites.
Yeah, what a twist.
Next time, episode 18, The Phantasm Menace. An eerie egress is made as an unnerved knave is chased by a grim ghoul across the graves. A trip into tools signals hope for a wise guy dope. But could his chances soon go up in smoke? The Cosa Nostra Holocaust continues on Friday. Bat Frights. Same Bat Pod. Different Bat minute.
Must have
upp, stiffigt habitaner.